Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how the camera system is set up in the game and how you can change and modify the cameras that are in your level and even add new ones if you really want to. So we're going to start by looking at this cameras game object, which contains underneath it all of the different cameras that can be viewed in the level. The most important one is always the gameplay camera, and this is the default camera that'll be viewed when you start the game. It's basically the one in the office here that you can use to look left and right and play with the doors and light switches and other things like that. Um, so this camera is special. It has the office controller script on it, which basically gives you some properties you can play with, like the speed at which the camera turns. There's a left and a right threshold. This tells you when you basically the area of the screen that you can put your mouse in to turn left or right. So right now, if you go basically in the left 20% of the screen, the camera will start turning left, and in the right 20% of the screen, the camera will turn right. Of course, on mobile, these have no effect because the camera is controlled by touching and dragging the screen. So this only really has any effect on PC or Mac or basically standalone builds. And then last you have this max turn angle, which tells how far the camera can turn from center in either direction. So right now it's set to 50 degrees. So if you want to change, a little bit of how your office camera works, then this is where you would do it. Otherwise, the rest of the cameras in the game are pretty normal. They have some effects on them, like they have this noise and grain and fisheye lens and scratches, all to give it that kind of, you know, VHS video camera effect. And then a few of them also have animators, which basically control their left and right movement. They just kind of automatically pan in different directions. So you can set up those however you want. Um, and then lastly, there's this parts cam, which is basically just a blank camera. This is the one that when you view it in game, all you see is a big thing that says audio only, and you hear some stuff through it, but that's basically it. It's kind of a dummy camera that you'll never really want to look at, but is there to just kind of screw up the player. So these cameras are all positioned in the kind of areas that you'd want to view them from. Uh, Now, if you wanted to move them, there is something else that you have to be aware of, which is the user interface for the camera screen. So if you look under main camera, or main canvas, sorry, under game HUD, we have this cam buttons object. Let me just enable that here. By default, it's disabled because when you start the game, you can't see it. So you can't really see it in here, so let's go into our game view and you'll see what it looks like. So this contains a kind of a map of the level, and it shows a bunch of camera icons where each of the cameras you can view are. So each of these is actually a button that you can click, and it'll take you to that camera. So you'll see here under the map overlay, we have all the different buttons, and these correspond to the cameras in the level. So if you were to move a camera in the level, you would also want to move its corresponding button so that players actually know where that camera is actually like being viewed from. Likewise, if you wanted to add a new camera, you would also have to add it in here and hook that up appropriately. So I'll actually show you how to do that right now. So let's go back to the scene and let's take this one, Factory 2. Let's say we want to add a second camera in the factory. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to just name it Cam Factory 2 underscore 2. Why not? And then I'm going to just move it to a different spot in the level. That's good. Maybe rotate it a little bit. And this one has an animator on it, which makes it move back and forth. I'm going to say I don't want that for this one, so I'm just going to remove that. So now it's a static camera that you can always view this room from in this particular angle. Okay, so now that we have the new camera, we have to do a couple things to notify the game of it. So the first is to go back to the game controller, where we have this all cameras array. And we're going to want to add that camera into that array. So what we'll do is, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So we'll add a new element and then just drag that in there. So now the game is actually aware that that is a camera that can be viewed. Next, we're going to need to set up a button for that camera. So let's go to our map overlay. All right, and I'm going to duplicate Factory 2 here. And let's rename it Factory 2 underscore 2. Now this, all it is that camera icon and then a hitbox. You probably won't want to modify these too much unless you're actually changing the icons. So next we're just going to move this. I'm just going to manually set the rect transform here because it's easier. So I think in the scene we basically moved it a bit to the right into this corner. So we're going to do something similar. Move it over here. And really that's all you need to do there. And then next we have to set up what happens when you click this button. So under the UI button script, you'll see there's this on click. It notifies the game controller and it sends in the name of the camera that you want it to view. So previously this was set to go to Cam Factory 2. We're instead going to want this one. So let's copy that name. So Cam Factory 2.2. So when you click this button, it'll show you that camera. So let's actually try this out and make sure it works. Because I left this cam buttons thing enabled, you can see it automatically at the start of the game. So that's why that's there. But as you can see, it works anyway. If I click on this one, now I can see this camera. Go to any other camera and close the cameras. And there you go. So once again, when you're done doing all this, you'll want to actually just hide this cam buttons thing again so that when you start the game, it's not immediately visible. Let's see. There we go. There we have it. Okay, so yeah, that is how you can play around with the cameras in the game. Have fun.